And now I'd like to open and begin the open session. So first, let me ask everyone to please stand and we will do the Pledge of Allegiance. All right. Dr. Wilson, you want to start off for us?
You bet. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. Next, I would like approval of our agenda. This is an action item.
I move to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Mrs. Chong.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Chang. I'm going to do roll call and call for the approval. Okay, hang on a minute. Okay, Mr. Barbary,
Aye.
Mr. Chang,
Aye.
Mrs. Lin,
Aye.
Mrs. Chong,
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan, aye, and then our student board member.
Aye.
Thank you. And so the motion for the approval of the agenda has passed. And now approval of minutes. Am I in the right section, Stephen?
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you. Board of Education, February 9th, 21, the Board of Education minutes. May I have a motion, please?
I move to approve the minutes.
I second.
Thank you, Mr. Chang, and thank you, Mrs. Chong. All right, next we have the public comment.
I think we have to vote on that.
We have to vote on that.
Oh, we have to vote on that. See, I'm always moving faster. All right, so let's call on Mrs. Chong first.
Aye.
Mr. Barbary,
Aye.
Mrs. Lin,
Aye.
Mr. Chang,
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan, aye, and student board member.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion to approve the minutes has passed, and now public comments. The Board of Education has adopted Board Policy 9323B to ensure the public's right to be heard in any matters pertaining to the San Marino Unified School District. Persons who wish to provide public comment will have two options to submit public comments. They may do it prior to the meeting, submit through an online form, or they can request to speak during the meeting through question and answer and phone dial-in. You may submit through an online form for the open or closed session from 11 to 3:30. Comments received during this time will not be read during the meeting, but will be provided to the Board of Education. Please submit your comments at the website address, Board of Education 22321. Public comments through question and answer during the meeting. There will be opportunities for the public to make comments, and it will be offered prior to closed session at the start of the regular open session for items not on the agenda and prior to consent. Information or action items for matters on the agenda. The Board of Education reserves the right to add a public comment period prior to any individual item on the agenda. There will be 5 minutes allotted to each speaker, maximum of 20 minutes to each subject matter. However, in the event that there are more than 4 speakers on the same subject matter, the board president retains the discretion to adjust and to limit the time allocated to each speaker to ensure that all wishing to speak will be heard within the 20-minute allotment. During public comment, the meeting will pause for 1 minute to take requests to speak. The raise your hand function is used to take requests during the public comment period. For online attendees, press the raise a hand icon to add yourself to the queue. And for phone attendees, dial *9. The speaking order will be determined based on the order of requests received. Individual speakers will be unmuted and called to speak. So prior to the meeting, you may submit an online form. During the meeting, raise your hand or *9.
Thank you, President Ryan. We'll pause the meeting for 1 minute to take requests to speak on items not on the agenda. If you would like to make a request, please press the raise hand icon. And if you are joining us by phone, please dial *9. We'll pause for 1 minute. Okay, President Ryan, we have no requests to speak on items not on the agenda.
Okay. How about the matters on the consent agenda?
Actually, we'll need to pause there, President Ryan, and we have a public hearing, and we're going to have a minute after each of these, after you gavel this in for the public to comment on each of these. So that's built into this before we get to
Okay.
consent. So I think at this point, we'll need to turn this over to Dr. Delatorre. Is that right, Linda?
No. I have section 8A.
Okay. Great. Okay, great. Thank you, Mrs. Ryan.
Thank you. So in 8A, there's a public hearing and comment on the 1921-22 District Sunshine Proposal for contract negotiations between the San Marino Unified School District and the California School Employees Association, CSEA Local Chapter 120. This is an action item. And so this is the initial sunshine proposal. Item 8A, copies of the district's draft initial proposal for the 2021-22 contract negotiations between the district and the California School Employees Association were made available for public review on the district's website as of February 9th, 2021. The California School Employees Association has made its proposal available for public comment as well. However, the board will not be taking action on the association's proposal. Any member of the public wishing to speak on item 8A, the district sunshine proposal between the San Marino Unified School District and the California School Employees Association may do so at this time. Dr. Choi.
Thank you, President Ryan. Again, we'll pause the meeting for 1 minute to take requests regarding the sunshine proposal for the district and CSEA. If you would like to make a request to speak, please press the raise hand icon. And if you're joining us by phone, please dial *9. President Ryan, we have no request to speak regarding this item.
Okay, so next I will need to take action on this, so I will need a motion.
What is the action on? Is on the sunshine proposal?
Yes, it's an action item, so I need a motion to approve
Mrs.
it.
Dr. Delatorre, the action will actually be taken in the action item section. This is the public hearing portion.
Oh,
Yes.
just the public. I'm sorry. I was already taking action. Thank you. So I'm moving now to item 8B, is that correct?
Correct.
All right. So in 8B is the public hearing and comment on the 2021-22 District Sunshine Proposal for contract negotiations between San Marino Unified School District and the San Marino Teachers Association, SMTA. In this section, public hearing and comment on the 2021-22 District Sunshine Proposal for contract negotiations. Again, the district made available on its website for public review its initial proposals for bargaining with the San Marino Teachers Association for the 21-22 school year on February 9th. Any member of the public wishing to speak on item 8B, District Sunshine Proposal between the San Marino Unified School District and the San Marino Teachers Association may do so at this time.
Thank you, President Ryan. We are pausing 1 minute to take requests to speak on this public hearing item. If you would like to speak, please press the raise hand icon or dial *9. President Ryan, we have no requests.
Thank you, Dr. Choi. We will move into 9A, the consent section, and that's 9A to 9E.
So again, we'll pause the meeting for 1 minute to take requests to speak regarding matters in the consent section. If you would like to make a request to speak, please press the raise hand icon or dial *9. President Ryan, we have no requests to speak.
Thank you so much. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda section? All right, so may I have a motion?
I move to approve the consent section items.
Thank you, Mr. Barbary.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Chung. So the consent agenda items 9A to 9E. Let's take a roll call vote. Mr. Chang, please.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chang. Mrs. Chong,
Aye.
Mrs. Chen Lin,
Aye.
Mr. Barbary,
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan, aye, and student board member.
Aye.
Thank you. Next, we have communication section. And in 10A, communication from the Board of Education. This is, of course, an informational item, and we will have Mrs. Chong begin.
Hi. So first, I just wanted to say a big thank you and shout out to our Girl Scout troop number 5921. They are working on their democracy badge, and I met with them last week, and I invited them to come and watch us in action. I told them don't stay till 11 p.m., but come and join for something. So moving on, I wanted to give a huge thank you to our community for trusting the district as we engaged in reopening this week. I wanted to also encourage our community to continue to be safe. This really only works truly if we all do our part, and we all do have a part to play, whether we are at home or out at school. And I want to really just say thank you to all of my fellow current and past previous board members in supporting the staff all these months. I've only been at this a couple of months, and it's been a lot to take in, especially as we're working really hard together to keep everyone safe while meeting the needs of all of our students. And it feels like the light is kind of starting to appear. And as we get through this last stretch, I think how we get through it will be our legacy for our children, in how we respect each other and look out for each other as a community within the school and within San Marino, because that's really what it's about. And so I just want to say thank you to our previous board, to our current board, for doing all of this really heavy lifting these past few months. And that's an accomplishment. And as a community member and a parent and a freshman board member, I just want to say thank you for your service.
Thank you, Mrs. Chong. Mr. Chang, please.
First of all, I'd like to appreciate all of our community people, including from the parent, teacher, and staff. With your patience, finally, our school district is able to make a deal with USC Care Medicine. So we are going to give you a shot, teacher and staff, next Friday and Saturday. So this is a long process. I also personally, I want to appreciate Dr. Wilson and Dr. Choi with your ability and patience for our negotiation. Finally, everything come true. So I think we will be proud to say in the LA County, we are the 3 school districts, including La Canada, South Pasadena, and San Marino, all 3 school districts effort and get a vaccine by tertiary care medical center, USC Care Medicine. So in the meantime, I also want to appreciate the USC CEO, Smusd, Ravi Budi. So he's a USC Care Medical Group CEO. With her effort, I think this being facilitated for all the process. So this first one, I think the teacher staff, you can be relieved. You can relieve. You will get a shot next week. And in the meantime, I'm glad we can reopen for TK to 2. I think this is also a big progress. But just think about with this progress, you need to be cautious. One more time, as the healthcare provider, I want to, and the board member individually, I want to say, be cautious. Parent, teacher, both of you, we are holding you accountable. for our kids. Yeah, especially parent. You know, daytime you walk outside of San Marino, the daytime you come back, and the next day you will send your kid to the school. So in the advance, I want to mention about this, so everyone have mutual understanding. School district, take care of your kid, take care of our teacher and the staff, but everyone need to work together to prevent for COVID-19 virus. Thank you. That's it.
Mrs. Chanlin?
I'd also like to say that it's been great to see TK-2 go back, and good to see that the teachers are back and doing really well, and the students are happy. And it's great to see all of the Facebook posts in the last 2 days. I've also been receiving some communication from different people in the community asking for more transparency and trust, and ways that we can just continue to really be open with everybody. And a community member had sent me a link to another school district's board agenda and packet, where they link everything discussed at the board meeting, including source documents of over 968 pages worth of material that the public can follow right along and be fully informed. And I just want to assure these community members that we are working to make that happen, and to have the Zoom link be easily available on the first page of the SMUSD website so that more people can join. It's great to see that we are on Zoom and that so many people are joining us. I know that there are many more people who joined by Zoom than there were when we were in the boardroom. They actually couldn't even fit there. So this is really great. So thank you to Stephen Choi for working so hard and making all of this available. And we are hearing you, and we are gonna get you more information on our website. And I also know that others in the community have pointed out that our city council does a really good job of having everything on their website. So we will also be looking at that. So thank you to all the community members who continue to reach out.
Thank you, Mrs. Chanlin. Mr. Barbary, please.
So I'm going to sound like an echo chamber here, because I want to thank all of our teachers and staff and families and parents involved in getting TK-2 open. It's great. And again, I saw a lot of happy kids and Facebook posts, and happy teachers and staff. It's so nice to have kids back in school. Just feels so natural. You know, and I know that we're working hard to get the rest of our elementary kids back to campus. And I think that there's some, good news coming on that. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Middle school and high school, it's tough. I mean, the guidance is tough across the state when you're in the tier we're in. So, I think everybody's working hard so that as soon as we can, we will try to bring your kids back. I really like to send us an extra thank you out to the union representatives. I think that they are bucking a lot of trends in our state, and working really hard with the district to achieve this goal. Some districts are way behind us. Not to say we're the first, but many districts are way behind us in counties where we're in the same tier. And so, and I know that there's a lot of pressure from larger union groups to not come back, but I'm so thankful that our union has worked so closely with us. I hope they feel safe. And as Joseph pointed out, for those that want to have the vaccine, one will be available to them very shortly. And I think that's great for those that choose that. So just again, thank you to the union, and thank you to all our teachers and staff for really a successful reopening for the little kids.
Thank you, Mr. Barbary. Okay. So I'm gonna first thank everyone, and then I'm gonna take a little detour. But first of all, Thank you to our membership, our CSEA and SMTA, for working so closely with our administrators and our cabinet member. Dr. Choi, for your leadership with Mr. Chang and Dr. Wilson regarding getting vaccines for our staff. I don't know, I can't thank Dr. Delatorre enough for her work with negotiations, as well as all the tasks that she takes on for us. She does a Herculean task on almost everything that we ask her to do, and then she shines. So thank you. Dr. Richter, thank you for joining me on our visit with the Michael White Adobe and looking at curriculum. You continue to do a fabulous job for us as we look at transitioning to a hybrid model, and you'll be instrumental. Thank you to our principals, Dr. Lin, Alana Foray, for your leadership, your communication with the community, and the list goes on and on. Students for hanging in there and coming back and being joyful, but also for the students who are still waiting to come back. Parents, thank you for your patience and your understanding. And yes, as Mr. Chang said, we're all in this together. So thank you to the San Marino community. I want to take a little detour and kind of present to you. I went to a LACSTA meeting last night and heard speaker Erica Hoffman. And I wanted to share with our community a little bit about what the LA County Schools Trustees Association is doing. They're looking at legislation, and they're looking at advocating for a more flexible budget. So when Governor passes his budget, they're asking for specific things and some modifications. So we're looking at AB 86, and right now we're in the purple tier, but quickly moving into the red, I hope. Okay, I have my fingers crossed. So in the purple tier, while there may be requirements for testing, we are really looking to bring back TK to sixth grade pretty quickly here. And as we move to the red tier, the testing may be weaned back a little bit, but it is only at the comfort and confidence of our staff that we're able to do this movement. So we all have a part in keeping each other safe. And now, as we are looking at data in real time and not weekly updates, we always want to look at legislation and how the language may or may not be clear. First, they say 25 out of 100,000, then they say less than that, they say more than that. They're also talking about doing more with the budget and having a timeline that we have to spend the budget and allotment that we have by July. So the school association, the school board is asking for the governor to be more flexible, that we as a school district will need time to plan on the spending, and certain community organizations such as Mount SAC is also partnering with school districts to mitigate learning loss by looking at offering free summer school to our students and extended day. So they're also studying and looking at funding for paraprofessionals, the CSEA group, and they're looking at a 10% budget included in that. And so as we're looking at all of these things coming down, CSBA has an action day where they go and they propose some ideas. And as we look at the first wave of funding is to mitigate learning loss, but the second wave of funding is really looking at how we can support our LCAP. And so the governor wants to do the right things. He wants the schools to open, and he's working very closely with the school districts to make that happen. But as a lot of people understand, reopening at each of the levels requires safety. It requires everyone to do their part, but it requires money. And so that's what's going on with the bills. There are 345 bills regarding schools reopening and 200 more on the budget. So that's kind of some things I wanted to kind of report back to the group, as well as a look at our second wave of money for PPE. So anyways, that was kind of my report. Dr. Wilson, I think you're next. Were you going to report on that? You're muted.
All right, sorry about that. Thank you, Mr. Ryan. I want to start by thanking the Board of Education. None of this could be possible without your support. And, you know, I really appreciate what Jane said earlier, thanking the old board and the new board who really seamlessly helped us through this process of getting to where we could bring our kids back. So thank you so much, Board of Education. TK2 opening, as you probably know, went amazingly well at both sites. I was able to get to both sites on day one. It was so much fun doing temperature checks and doing screening with board member Chan at Carver on the first day. And I know that Dr. Delatorre, Dr. Richter went over to Valentine to do the same, and they had a great time over there. You know, first of all, safety was absolutely paramount, and the two teams acted with precision and care as our kids arrived. And of course, there were some jitters about getting everything right. The kids were amazing in finding the dots to stand on and keeping that distance and looking for direction. So it was just so cool. I heard one little guy exclaim when I think Dr. Delatorre told me the story. She heard that she said, "Welcome back," and he said, "I've never been here." It was just one of those moments. And then today at Valentine, I was over in the kindergarten area as they were arriving, and there was this little guy that gets out of his car with his Dodger hat on, sunglasses. He looked like the first day of school with his backpack all clean. And his mom was just standing there so proud and just thrilled. And I went over to say, "Oh, isn't this amazing, wonderful?" She said, "He got dressed 2.5 hours ago and has been dying to get into the car to get to school." So a lot of excitement. You know, I just want to thank our teachers, as has been mentioned, our teachers, principals, office staffs, aides, custodians, nutritionists, nurses, our maintenance staff. This was an all-around team effort to get to this point, and I'm just so very, very proud of you. In fact, I want to mention just how proud I am. If you were to go on the LADPH website tonight and look, you go under the school reopening things. We were one of only 21 districts. Currently, we are one of only 21 districts in the county open under the TK2 waiver. And this is even a prouder moment. Thank you, Dr. Choi, and all the others. We are one of only 12 school districts in the entire county with a state reviewed and approved COVID safety plan in place. There's only 12 of us. That's a big deal because that really puts us in a position to continue to move forward with reopening. And we are going to talk more about that in the update today. The other beautiful thing is that since we are open under the TK6 release, TK6 waiver program, even if somehow there is a surge and the numbers go above 25, our opening is irreversible. We're allowed to remain open as long as we are keeping our safety protocols in place. Meanwhile, those who have not gone through that process would not be permitted to open. And then you heard from Board Member Chang. Again, thank you, Mr. Chang, for really making the connections for us with USC. And it's a great partnership. So I was on with the superintendents of South Pasadena and La Cañada about a week ago, along with Dr. Choi, Mr. Chang, and some others. The USC team is wonderful. They've been amazingly accommodating. They really are piloting this with us. We are going to be among 3 of the first districts to comprehensively offer a vaccination program. I just checked. We have nearly 700 people signed up between the 3 districts right now. And that window does close tomorrow evening at midnight. But we are finding there are quite a few staff members who have secured vaccinations otherwise. So that's just wonderful. We know going as of March 6th, we will have a large majority of our staff with the first vaccine, and that's just great news. And I will end it with that. I'll be back with you for the update in a little while. So I'll turn this back over to Mrs. Ryan.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wilson. And next up, we have our student board member.
So first off, I just want to start by saying I think it's amazing that staff and faculty members are getting vaccinated. I love to see the progress, and with the reopening too, I'm excited to see where that goes. And on to my communications. So last Friday, I met with Dr. Richter just to brainstorm ideas about how to boost student leadership between our district schools, and specifically between our school's student councils. And we are working to have our ideas presented and executed within the coming weeks and months. Secondly, over the past 2 weeks, the high school's ASB has been having guided discussions about distance learning, and we have been writing a document to send to the administration regarding our specific areas of concerns and thoughts for improvement. And I believe we actually sent this document off to Mr. Kassan Clay today. And that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Fahini. Next, in 11, communication from the audience regarding matters on the information agenda are to be made at this time. Is that correct, Dr. Choi?
That is correct. And
Thank you so much.
Go ahead and share my screen here. Okay, we'll pause the meeting for 1 minute to take requests to speak on items under the information section. If you would like to make a request, please press the raise hand icon or dial *9. Okay, President Ryan, I see no requests.
Thank you so much. And under item 12A, we are going to ask you and Dr. Wilson to present on COVID-19, the compliance team and reopening update.
Thank you, President Ryan, members of the board, executive team, student board member Vahini, principals joining us as panelists tonight. It's my pleasure to present an update from the COVID-19 compliance team. And joining me is Dr. Wilson to provide some reopening updates for tonight. I'd like to always start off these presentations with just a quick snapshot of our metrics just released earlier today. The adjusted case rate has dropped to 12.3, which is excellent news. As you recall, in early January, it's representing a 90% drop in the adjusted case rate. So that is a significant improvement. Moving LA County closer towards the red tier. We are still in the purple tier. The test positivity rate has also dropped. It is at 5.1. So that is currently in the red tier. As President Ryan had mentioned earlier, we are very close to moving into the red tier. So there has been a lot of movement and a lot of changes coming from both the county and the state. About less than 2 weeks ago, we got some updated protocols from the county. And just earlier this week, we just received some additional updates to what the state is releasing as guidance for their reopening. And then, of course, the big announcement last week was the fact that LA County did drop its adjusted case rate to below 25, triggering a number of changes that authorized the approval of reopening schools. That was really the big headline news. And then, of course, not to diminish from youth sports, because of the significant drop, there's also an announcement that once the county drops below the case rate of 14, certain outdoor competitive youth sports may resume. So we have a lot more information. We also, as a compliance team, we have a lot more homework to do as well. And we will continue to meet weekly to hash out all of the details in regards to these updates. So just, I wanted to highlight a few key areas that we made a lot of progress on, especially since the last time we presented. First being COVID testing. Last week, we launched our first on-site COVID testing clinic for all staff. And those samples were collected on Thursday, and we had a lot of staff members participate in a saliva test. And very, very good news. None of our staff that were tested actually tested positive. They were all negative. So that's very positive news. We want to encourage more of our staff to participate in the staff tests. Now, there's a lot of questions about how we could streamline the process, because the testing event that we held last week was at one centralized location, and we had staff come and visit. Some of the adjustments that we're making this week are that we're asking staff to register ahead of time so that the lab and the partners that we're working with, the Chinatown Service Center, can pre-label the sample kits. So as of this evening, we did receive those pre-labeled kits, and we are getting those kits out to staff tomorrow. And once the staff member has those kits, they can actually start to collect their sample and then just drop it off on Thursday. That makes it a lot easier. We also have some breaking news, some additional news to share, which is I'm continuing to look at increasing access to testing for staff and students. And we've identified a partner. There are some details that we have to figure out, but be prepared for an additional announcement about increasing access to testing for both staff and students 7 days a week. We want to make sure that we provide the most access to that. And of course, a lot of folks will ask, what they hear about testing and they ask, why are we getting tested when we don't have symptoms, or should everyone get tested even if they don't have symptoms? So I just want to give a brief overview of the different types of testing programs. So there's really 4 key types of testing for COVID. First, being symptomatic. If staff or student develops COVID symptoms, that's one type of testing. That's one reason to go get a test. The second type is responsive testing, which is in the event a staff member or a student develops symptoms of COVID or tests positive for COVID, we want to offer testing to other staff members and other students that have been either in the same group or even within close proximity that may have had close contact. So that type of testing is called responsive testing. And then the third and the fourth types of testing are called asymptomatic testing. So asymptomatic testing is really more of a safeguard measure where there's 2 types. There's surveillance testing and then there's screening testing. So surveillance testing is really to gauge the positivity rate and kind of assess and create a baseline level of data where you can say, well, this community or this school or this district has this current case rate or this current positivity test rate. And it's usually administered about every month or every 2 months. It's just to provide a very high level surveillance level type of testing and to get some data points there. Then there's the second type of asymptomatic testing, which is called screening. And screening is something that's even broader. It's something that you want to take, and most counties, most cities will do some type of screening asymptomatic testing. But a lot of folks will ask, is our district doing asymptomatic testing? I am looking at all of the testing partners, and they are willing to do asymptomatic testing for our staff and students. But yet at the same time, as President Ryan had alluded to, we have to look very closely at the legislature. As was mentioned earlier, State Assembly Bill 86 is also looking at what are the provisions that would require a district to do a certain type of asymptomatic testing or not do asymptomatic testing. So we're looking very closely at that. I know in terms of symptomatic and responsive testing, we're on it. We're increasing access to that. And in many ways, with the testing with staff, we are also conducting asymptomatic testing. But at the same time, we're waiting for the state to provide more guidance on that. So I hope that helps. On the slide there, I do have a table that was a recommendation from the state of California's Department of Public Health, which has guidelines in terms of when to do asymptomatic and symptomatic testing, depending on the tier level. So hopefully that helps a little bit. I know sometimes there's so much terminology that goes around, but we will be making more announcements about testing very soon. And then finally, the second part I want to highlight is the vaccination. I think we've talked a lot about it earlier this week. And again, thank you to Board Member Chang for helping us make the connections. We are very pleased to offer vaccines to all of our staff. Remember to register by the end of tomorrow if you intend to take the March 5th or 6th vaccine. It is a Pfizer vaccine, and we do have a second event scheduled 3 weeks right after the 5th or the 6th, depending on which day you get the vaccine. So very, very good news for our district. And now I would like to hand the presentation over to our two amazing elementary school principals, Dr. Lin and Mrs. Faray, to provide us with an update on the reopening of TK2.
Mike? Great. Okay, I'll go first. Thank you, Alana. We did rock, paper, scissors. So thank you, Dr. Choi. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, President Ryan, Superintendent Wilson, and members of the governance team. I'm Mike Lin, principal of KL Carver School. Yesterday's first day back for TK2 was a day in which we received lots of gifts. So Stephen, if you could go to the next slide. You're gonna see Dr. Wilson right there, top left-hand corner. And so we started the day with gifts from Dr. Wilson and district staff, and ended the day with gifts from the Carver Social Committee. You can see at the lower right-hand corner, you can't really see that clearly. There were signs and just really a lot of goodies for our lower grade level teachers, done by our upper grade level teachers and staff who were so active. And they were active in the participation of yesterday's reopening actions. And our PTA and district staff gifted us with banners, handmade signs, happy music, and balloons that can be reused. I know Jennifer said, "You're getting balloons, yellow and blue." I said, "Can they be reused?" And she's like, "Don't push your luck." But no, I'm just kidding. But she actually sent those that we can actually deflate and reuse for promotion, which is awesome. So I would say the most important gift of all is the gift of trust from our families. And as you know, many months and countless hours went into the planning and implementation process to reopen, and we have many folks to thank. I would like to thank Dr. Wilson for your leadership at the helm. Your hard work, compassion, and focus on the importance of positive relationships is instrumental in motivating staff and bringing us together to make history during these transitional times. Our teachers and staff were observed to be beaming with joy to see students in person. I could tell that their love for children shines bright and emanates inspiration to us all. I'm forever grateful for the dedication and courage of our teachers and staff. I'm forever grateful for Becky Waddington and our fabulous PTA volunteers. I don't know if you can see Becky in the pictures, but she's taking center stage right there in the middle, right there with her blue mask. I think that's Jane in the back. And I'm grateful for the parents and guardians who gifted us with their students so we may have the privilege of doing what we do best, and that is teaching and learning. So thank you, and now I present to you my esteemed colleague and most valuable professional collaborator, Mrs. Faray.
President Ryan, members of the board, student board member, Superintendent Wilson, and cabinet. It is a momentous occasion tonight for Dr. Lin and I to report out to you the amazing success that we've had the last 2 days welcoming students back on campus. You know, along this journey, Dr. Lin and I have recognized a host of stakeholders who've contributed over many months to the safe reopening of school. And tonight, I'd really like to highlight the monumental efforts of our teachers in this overwhelming success of our first 2 days. It has been a huge team effort, as you can imagine. Every teacher, assistant, staff member, custodian has played a significant role, from temperature screening to supervising students, monitoring restrooms. Our teachers have walked a very fine line of maintaining equilibrium for all of our students during this readjustment and return to school, because as you know, not everyone is returning to school. And so there's a process of keeping everyone folded in and everyone feeling part of the team in a class as you are navigating this whole new hybrid schedule. So I just can't say enough about the hard work that they've poured into making this a success, and all the while encouraging each other. Our social committee prepared flowers, vases of flowers for all of our staff members coming back. And it was such a, on top of everything else, to do that just meant a lot. So here in the pictures, you're seeing Dr. Wilson, Dr. Choi, Dr. Richter delivering gifts to our teachers on Monday, which was a wonderful, delightful surprise. And you can see Mrs. Bulgin there on the top right. She is temperature screening all of her students, and you can see how well the dots are working. Everybody's physically distanced there. The children have been amazingly receptive to the safety protocols in place. And in the lower left, you can see how excited they were coming through the gate, many of them carrying packages of tissues and hand sanitizers for their classroom teachers. And across the bottom, you can see some of the different things going on. The very first recess for our children, and PE going on. The opportunity to play with each other. I think those are the biggest smiles that I've seen. And the most relaxed state is when the children have had that free time to get out there in the field and on the structures to play with each other. It's just been wonderful. And wow, what incredible weather we've been gifted these last 2 days. Speaking of gifts, Mike, right? I want to just give a shout out to Maria Boutron, our health clerk at Valentine. She has led the charge with training all of our staff. We've got a deep backup of temperature screeners in case of absences. And she has overseen the safe ingress and egress of all of our personnel and students on campus. She's been incredible. And the children's presence on campus has brought an incredible infusion of joy into our campus and life. It feels like life is returned. One challenge that I see very clearly is that it's going to be a bit of a process getting everyone to maintain that 6 feet of distance. You can see the kids are catching on pretty quickly, but we still have some work to do with our extended community and helping parents to know that they've got to be part of that as well. So I'm just really thankful for everybody's cooperation. I'm just checking my notes here to make sure I've covered everything. Yeah, it has been so successful, but I don't think we should be surprised by that success, because we have spent so many months preparing for this day, and we've had so many levels of expertise from our board, from our district leadership, from our union leadership, and all of our stakeholder groups, our parents who are professionals with really specific expertise that have helped so much. And give a shout out also to Dr. Danny Dabbs, who's been helping us screen each day, and for our incredible PTA president, Marissa Kelly, who's been so resilient through this year and delivered balloons and welcome back signs to our lawn, just to make everybody feel welcome as they returned. So I just am thrilled to be able to provide this report to the board this evening. And thank you all for your support throughout this entire odyssey.
Thank you, Alana. Thank you, Mike.
And thank you. Mike and Alana, I got to get over to see both of them in action. And, there's a lot of anxiety with parents dropping kids off and kids coming on campus. And, both Mike and Alana, through their spirit, really were successful at calming the nerves of the kids and, helping the kids figure out where to stand and how to space themselves out well. And so this is going to run like clockwork. In fact, by day 2, I walked over today to see Alana with the arrival, and right out of her mouth, she said, it's like cutting through butter with a warm knife. It's just working. So that was exciting. So we'll continue on then with the presentation, Dr. Choi, with the next slide. So yes, so here we go. Let's talk about grades 3 through 5 reopening and updates around that. With the terrific success of bringing our TK2 students back on campus, and we're going to learn a lot over the next couple of weeks. And of course, now we want to for sure turn our concentration on to bringing back our upper grades at Carver and Valentine. And so what I have given to Dr. Richter and Dr. Delatorre is that an expectation of approximately March 8th through 12th, offering a reopening of grades 3 through 5. There's a lot of work still to be done on that. I want to make sure everybody understands that. The beauty of this date or these dates is that by the 8th, as you know, our teachers and staff will have had the opportunity to receive the first vaccination. Also, again, we have the terrific success of the TK2 program to study as we bring other students back on campus. So parents should expect a commitment survey to come home, I believe later this week, Dr. Richter, is that correct? Or Dr. Choi? I think later this week, probably Thursday or Friday. Okay, great. And so we'll ask you again to make that commitment. It's really important to have that discussion with your child and of course, with the whole family, just to all be on the same page with that. Because it's really important that we get that commitment one direction or the other, because we have a lot of planning once we receive those numbers to make sure those classes are balanced correctly. And part of this is the schedule complexities, right? So again, we have to figure out how to deliver not just math, language, arts, science, and social science, but things like music, PE, art, and other programs, SAI, ELD, and intervention. So there's a lot that has to fit into that. And I really want to, tell you guys that Jessica Bolgen, Letty Aranda, Kristen Van Steenwyk have done such a great job on SMTA side to help us work through those scheduling complexities. But we have some work to do still on that with regards to 3 through 5. And of course, always keeping at the forefront the safety and security of all of our students and staff. That's the starting point. And if you had a chance to see the kids arrived, you recognize that immediately, that was the standard. So we are looking forward to very soon reopening. And I think based on where the data is going, as you've heard earlier, I think that's a safe bet that we will be able to open during that week. Next slide, Dr. Choi. And I just throw this up again, just to again show you the trend data. It's really important to understand the adjusted case rates now at 12.3 and the test positivity rates at 5.1. So look at those two numbers. And then let's go to the next slide. And if you look at what the tiers actually mean in California, it's important to understand that right now we're still in the purple, but I do want, go back this one slide back again. So you see test positivity rate is 5.1%. Go to the next slide. If you look in that second column, that's the positivity rate. We are actually in the red with test positivity rate. We're at 5.1 and the range is 5.0 to 8. Where we are, however, with the adjusted case rate right now is at 12.3, and we have to get that number down below 7 to get to the red tier. So even if you go into a lower tier on one metric, you have to go there on all metrics to actually be reclassified. But the good news is, based on the trend data, you can see in the box I created there to the right, look at how that adjusted case rate has dropped over 4 weeks, from 38.7 on February 2nd all the way down to 12.3. And we are anticipating that we will possibly enter the red tier by the next reading, March 2nd. So we're looking for that possibility, which opens up some new possibilities with regards to secondary as well. And I'm no prognosticator, nor am I a health professional, but looking at trend data, I really believe, based on the fact that they're saying about 1.5 million in LA County have either had COVID or have been exposed. So there's an element of herd immunity beginning to grow. And then on top of that, with the high number of vaccinations already delivered and the supplies are getting better, they feel like we're going to continue on this trend. I guess one thing they're still looking at is there going to be somewhat of a little uptick from Super Bowl weekend or from the President's weekend? They're looking at those things right now. Okay, so the news is really getting great on this end. So we'll go to the next slide. And so everybody wants to know, what about middle and high school? And I will tell you right off the bat that right now the county does not have a great answer on this. So what I did want to put in here for you is from the state guidance. And if you use that tiny URL, you can read the whole document from the guidance for the COVID-19 and reopening in-person instruction framework. Students can be placed into groups. By the way, this is secondary guidance. Groups that remain together all day during in-person instruction. The problem with that is there's no high or middle school student that has an identical schedule to another student, let alone 20 others. And as we all know that when our kids leave elementary, they go to middle school, their schedules get more complex and you start to see differentiation within mathematics, language arts, right? So some kids might be, in a pre-algebra course, whereas other kids are in a grade level math course, or there might be a child who's in an honors English course as opposed to a regular English course. So there's differentiation that happens at middle school, but then they go off to high school and you might have a freshman or 4 freshmen in one classroom, one social science classroom or world history classroom that has 4 different levels of math, right? You could have a kid who's in advanced math all the way down through remedial math. So one of the main problems with any sort of secondary schedule and keeping stable groups together is the differentiation of individual schedules once they get to secondary. So then the second model they talk about is teachers and support staff from different content areas working in teams that share students, preferably in a dedicated space separate from others. And currently the numbers that the state is using is 80 to 4 in a stable group. The problem here would actually rely on independent learning with the teacher as the guide on the side. This would result really in less teacher-directed lesson time and more independent study, again, with the teacher acting as a guide to students from many different courses. A third model, students in one stable group that stay together with 1 or 2 instructors who teach them directly part of the day and support their instruction from others who teach them virtually during other parts of the day. Problem here is there's many problems. Again, a variety of math levels, APs, honors cause too much differentiation in schedules for this to work. Also, the 2 instructors would have at least 3 more periods to teach in the virtual model, disallowing the opportunity to, quote, support the instruction of others. A fourth suggestion is you switch schedules or even membership after a break at the quarter. So there are some schools in the country who took and concentrated a semester of work into a block of time within a quarter, and then the students moved on to a new course in the next quarter. Problem here is that unless we had started this year that way, there is no way to reorganize the curriculum and master schedule to accommodate concentrated instruction for a quarter. And then really the last suggestion again from the state framework is a school year divided into smaller time units, 4 to 8 weeks, for example, in which students study 1 or 2 subjects intensively. The problem is the same as the one above. Unless you start your year that way, you can't just slide into that. So those might be models should the shutdown have continued past this year that districts might be looking at in dealing with this. So the bottom line is right now with regards to secondary, the county is telling us they're working very hard to identify usable models that work. Internally, I've asked Jason Kurtenbach, Carlos Kassam-Clay, Daryl Topalian, Ryan Kotchel to think very creatively of how we might bring students back to campus. And with the trend data going the way it is, we're looking forward to some opportunities this year. So we can go to the next slide. You might have seen this today. Governor Newsom lifts ban on California high school football. Outdoor sports can resume on February 26 in red and purple tiers. I'd like to invite Jason Kurtenbach and David Irier to join me and talk a little bit about this. First of all, if you read down there, Governor Newsom updated the state's guidance on the return of youth and high school sports on Friday, clearing a path for the return of football and other outdoor sports. According to the updated guidance, outdoor high contact sports can be played in counties in the purple and red tiers, as long as the counties have a case rate at or below 14 per 100,000. That's where we're going to be, right? That's where we are. The guidance goes into effect on February 26th. Next slide. And weekly testing requirements would have to be in place for high contact sports, but not for moderate contact sports. And those high contact sports, of course, are football, rugby, water polo. The others would include baseball, cheerleading, and softball. And so with that, David and Jason, I know we had a Rio Hondo League meeting. So why don't you guys jump in and talk to us a little bit?
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Members of the board, thanks for giving us the opportunity just to give you a brief insight into some of the happenings as far as youth sports go at San Marino High School. We did have a Rio Hondo League meeting today, and at that meeting, the main topic of discussion was which fall sports we felt we could proceed with, given the fact that we have not had significant time to really practice. And we've been bringing some students back over the course of the last few months, but mostly that's been working out. It's very difficult to do any sort of meaningful practice and scrimmages. Obviously, those are prohibited because we're not able to really share space with each other. Now that that appears to be coming to an end, some of the things that we have to consider is whether or not our neighboring districts and schools have the ability to begin testing. To have competitions, one of the pieces involved in having a competition is that you have to test your athletes. And one of the ways in which you do is prior to competition, you need a short time test, is what I'll call it. So you have to be able to test a student and get results back within 24 hours so that you can show that that student is clear to play on that team. That said, we are looking to be able to begin distribution of some equipment in the next coming week or so. But we were involved in a couple of votes today at the Rio Hondo League in terms of those fall sports. And it was determined that because we are still pretty far away from being able to do any inside sports, that girls volleyball, the fall sport that is inside, would not be taking place this year. There were a couple of thoughts around that from members of our league. One of them was the lack of significant practice time would lead to a potential increase in injury if we were able to get to the orange tier, which we didn't believe we would, based on the CIF guidelines for when we could run our seasons. The other was to have it outside is a completely different game. As you know, an inside volleyball game, it's a lot of diving, a lot of sliding. Can't really do that on a hard packed surface outside anywhere. And to do it in a, say, sand pit or on grass increases the risk of injury as well if that's not where you're used to playing on. Mr. Urier, am I forgetting anything from this morning's meeting that is of consequence we want to discuss here tonight?
And the last thing was water polo, that like football, following the guidelines of Governor Newsom, we are pursuing to try to get water polo games back in March. It's a logistic thing. Like you said earlier, Jason, we're working with other schools as far as will they have their testing in place and how the games will look. So at best, we're trying to get one round in of league games in March, but it's a process. We're working through it.
So, okay, great. Thanks, guys. So, so with that, I just want to assure the board and the community that, you know, everybody's working very hard to try to figure out how to bring kids back. I know that, Mr. Kurtenbach, you have expressed several times your commitment to, with, of course, with permission from the county to move forward with some type of in-person graduation for the high school. I'm looking forward, and hopefully that trend data continues to fall to a point where we almost get back to normal for that. So thank you for all the hard work you and Mr. Carlos Casam-Clay are doing as well.
Thank you, David and Jason.
Stephen, it's all yours.
Yeah, I just want to wrap up the presentation, remind folks that we do have a COVID-19 compliance team website as well as a reopening website with a lot of information. It's constantly being updated, and we also have very valuable frequently asked questions on there as well. That concludes our presentation.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Thank you, Dr. Choi. Next on 12B, we have resolutions.
I
Pardon
have
me?
a question. Chair, I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chang. I looked
So-
at Stephen and I thought he was talking, but his mouth wasn't moving. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr.
So
Chang.
today is the second day reopen for the TK and the 2 grade. And what is the return rate for both of Carver and Valentine in person? Yeah,
Dr.
Great
Choi, do you
question.
have that number?
yeah, number, yeah, percentage. They come back.
Unfortunately, I don't have a number, but I'm not sure. Maybe the principals can share.
112 at Carver. I could break it down by grade if you want.
Okay. TK.
Okay. TK, give me a second. Let me do the analysis right now. I have the spreadsheet up right here. I've been combing through the names and because I got to get the parent contact info. Give me 1 second. I have the latest for today, okay? Okay, while you're waiting for me, maybe Mrs. Foray could answer the Valentine question too.
Okay, well, we had, for TK, we had 7 students return. And I've got 138 on my list. It'll take me a minute to do grade levels, but in general, that was our count.
No worries, I'm doing it right now. I'm doing a pivot table, special pivot table in Excel.
Of course you are.
Okay, so first grade. Okay, now I'm looking at, we're gonna only.
Dr. Lin, I expected a bar graph and then also color charts, and I
Pie chart.
thought that was coming out.
Pie chart. All right, okay, pie chart, bar graph. In this case, the pivot table, okay, I'll read it out of the Excel pivot table. We're talking about TK, we have 3 kids. Kindergarten in-person hybrid is 40. First grade in-person is 31. Second grade in-person is 32. We also have a whole bunch of TBDs. We have no responses and we have distance learning. So I broke it down into those 4 categories.
Well, 106 at Carver, right?
Yeah, 106 as of this morning. So there's some TBDs.
Thank you. Go
by the-
ahead, Mr. Chang.
By the way, I have a suggestion because last couple of days, I received some of the message from our parents. They're still in the overseas. So I think it's the time for the school district or each school side probably communicate with parents. Say it's the time to prepare for the visa and come back. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chang. If there are no further questions, I will move to 12B. And Dr. Linda Delatorre will lead us through resolutions to reduce particular kinds of services for certificated staff. This is an informational item only.
Thank you, President Ryan, members of the Board of Education, Student Board Member Vahini, Dr. Wilson, and the governance team. This evening, I am going to present to the Board of Education on proposed resolutions. And I'd like to preface this discussion with the fact that the district is required to provide notice of layoff to certificated staff prior to March 15th for the succeeding year. Last year, the district found it necessary to reduce its budget by approximately $3.5 million. Dr. Wilson created a fiscal resources stability task force comprised of parents, staff, and community members whose charge was to brainstorm and research ways to boost and or generate new revenue streams. We then decided that we would offer a very successful early retirement incentive to staff, both certificated and classified. We made numerous classified and administrative reductions and presented the Board of Education with a resolution to reduce and/or eliminate certificated services. The resolution was presented to the board for the first time on March 10th, 2020. And we were able to notice teachers by March 15th. But this gave the board very little time to review and consider the resolution prior to the district having to issue those notices to affected members of the bargaining unit. But due to the generosity of our parents and school community, we were able to restore 11.2 FTE through the San Marino Schools Foundation's We Are San Marino campaign. This year, the district has a plan to provide more information to the board over a longer period of time in order for the board to be fully informed prior to being able to take action on the resolution. Over the last several weeks, the district has worked with council, the high school and middle school principals and assistant principals to review projected enrollment, course offerings, and class sizes to prepare 2 draft resolutions to reduce particular kinds of services within the certificated bargaining unit. The first resolution was prepared based on services within the certificated bargaining unit that identified areas where we believe we are overstaffed, predicated on enrollment projections for the 21-22 school year. In addition to that, we added some services that are tied to one-time funding provided by the San Marino Schools Foundation's We Are San Marino campaign. This resolution that I'm referencing has 8.4 certificated FTE. The second resolution was prepared as a contingency plan in the event that Measure E should fail on March 2nd. And this resolution reflects the number of positions, 33.8 certificated, that are funded by Measure E, along with some positions that were brought back again with one-time money from the We Are San Marino campaign. So the second resolution that we have prepared reflects, again, the positions that are currently being funded by Measure E, along with those positions that are identified on the first resolution that I was referencing. So this second one encompasses both of those components. The plan that I'd like to share with the Board of Education this evening, sorry, I have a custodian coming in to get the trash. Hello, Jorge, how are you? Is really that we need to hold a special board study session. Dr. Wilson has suggested March 3rd as a date, wherein under the direction of Dr. Wilson, I would present the specifics of each resolution along with enrollment projections. Dr. Richter will present on possible future programs and professional development for teachers. In addition to that, the school principals and assistant principals will present their proposed 2021-22 staffing plans, class sizes, course offerings, and student requests. And this will provide the Board of Education an opportunity to really dive into the data and provide more detailed information for the board's consideration and deliberation. And then on March 9th, staff will present the resolution to the Board of Education in an open session meeting. And then we would serve notices by March 15th based on whatever the board's decision is at that point. Now, if the district increases enrollment between the time that we notice certificated staff members and the beginning of next year, if we realize attrition in designated areas or we receive additional ongoing monies and or revenues, the board may elect to rescind some of the initial notices at a later date and time based on any one of those factors. So this evening, I just wanted to present the plan to you, talk to you generally about the resolutions and what they will contain. But the district feels very strongly about being able to provide the board with more information during a study session so that when the district asks you to take action, that you are able to make an educated, well-informed decision. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Dr. Telatorre, and I will now open up. This is an informational item, so board members, let me know if you have some questions or comment. And you, Dr. Delatorre, you mentioned March 3rd as our study session, right? March
Yes,
3rd.
if that fits in with the board schedule, that is the date that Dr. Wilson has identified for a study session. Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
So I'd just like to point out that at that study session, we would love to hear from the community as well. There would be opportunity for public input into this matter. You know, it's so hard right now with not knowing how Measure E is going to come out to have this conversation, and you know, it's such a large list. It's hard to talk about the specifics of it right now because you know, we're without knowing what that funding is going to look like. The number changes quite a bit, and so we're hopefully we don't have to take up the larger list. We're hopeful that the smaller list is what we get to discuss at that point, but at this point it's with the community to decide if the resolution will pass. So but I do want to make sure that people know that we will be that special session will be open for discussion of those measures at that point. So and we encourage all interested parties to come and talk to us about that. I know the last time there was some frustration that the list came out in the afternoon, and we basically had to approve it that night to make the deadline. So I'm glad to see that we're going to have an extra session to be able to discuss it and again listen to public comment. I would encourage Ms. Ryan to make sure that we have plenty of time available, not just maybe just the normal 20 minutes for public comment, but that we within reason have an open, a more open time frame to really hear from the community, what the list looks like. And but it is a lot of positions. So if we have to go down the road where it's Measure E doesn't pass and we have to cut that it's going to have to be noticed, that longer list, it's not going to be fun. Let's just say, if that's the best way to put it at this point. It's going to be hard decisions, and some class services are going to have to be cut back because it's just the reality. So much of our funding comes from the generous local community. Without $4.2 or so million, that's 10% of the budget. And with 86% of the budget, or the budget is spent on staff.
Yep.
There you go. I mean, it's pretty clear that it's going to affect the classroom. The district, is assuring us that they'll still offer, many courses as we can and as many elective areas as possible, but there will have to be a cutback in services. So again, hopefully we don't have to consider that list, but I encourage those interested parties to come and hear that meeting and be part of the discussion, not part of the discussion, but provide their input and listen to the principals kind of explained, and Dr. Richter explain what our plan is if it comes to that. So please come and join that meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Barbary.
And thank you, Dr. Wilson and Dr. Delatorre, for giving us the time. You guys have been very responsive to allow the board opportunity to really dig deep. And yes, Mr. Barbary, the study session, that's all it's on, is on this one item. So we will have time allotted for public opinion or speakers. And so with that, all right. So
Shelley.
this is an information
I think
item.
we have
Oh, go
more.
ahead, Ms. Chong.
Oh, Julie, go ahead first.
Okay, thanks. Just to piggyback on what Mr. Barbary mentioned, I also encourage the community to be involved in that conversation at that meeting on, it was March 3rd, right?
Yes.
I'm getting the 3rd and the 4th confused. On March 3rd. And I think a good way that we could help to engage the community with, it looks like we have about 47 attendees on tonight. And I think what would be great is, there are obviously hundreds, thousands more people who don't know about this because they're not here tonight. And so I think it would be great if we could send out an email ahead of that meeting on maybe March 1st or 2nd, let them know that we're having a special meeting and that this is going to be discussed, and encourage the community to be here and, you know, that so that they know about it. I think that would definitely help.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Lynn. Mrs. Strong, please.
Before I get to what I was going to say, I think by then we'll have the list publicly posted. We have to follow the 72-hour.
Yes, that the list will be publicly posted on 72 hours prior to the March 9 meeting.
Okay, that I was
Yes.
just trying to clarify.
Yes.
Can you just tell me again what exactly were the numbers for each of them?
Sure. Yes, of course I can.
It was 8.4.
8.4 is on resolution, the draft resolution number 14. And then the other resolution, let me just pull it up real quick, is 42.2 FTE.
Okay.
And
so
again, that's a combination between those positions that are funded by Measure E and those positions that were funded by one-time monies and or sections where we're overstaffed due to declining enrollment.
Okay, so I just want to stress that the difference is a lot.
Yeah.
And it really hinges on how Measure E goes. So if I think it's important to recognize we still have, another week before this comes down, and hopefully we'll even have results by the 3rd, because I'm not sure with mail-in ballots how that's going to work too. So yeah, so if you haven't, I'm not going to say anything else. That's it.
Yeah, but I hear what you're saying. And, we do have in-person and mail-in ballots on this particular election. So I'm not sure that we will know definitively on the 3rd, but it would be awfully nice if we, had enough votes in to be able to determine that, because then we wouldn't need to go through the exercise of the larger resolution. We could just focus on the smaller resolution in talking with the board about the staffing plans for next year. But if it's undetermined at that time, then it behooves us to kind of take you through that process. And so that's what the plan is at this time.
And I wanted to say thank you, because I do remember it being a little bit frustrating as a community member. And so thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to really give everyone a chance to dig in on all of this.
Absolutely. We heard you, and we're making the appropriate adjustments according to what the board would like to see. So we're listening.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? All right. So,
Mr. Chang,
oh,
you'll have to unmute Mr. Chang.
Make sure this meeting notice also sent to the school foundation. Yeah, trustee.
okay. Will do.
And we'll have
Okay.
Dr. Actually, that was a great suggestion from Mrs. Chandlin and Ms. John. Dr. Choi will put out a constant contact with regards to that meeting and any other way we can notice.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Next up, 13 is communications from the audience regarding matters now that are on the action agenda, and they should be made at this time. Dr. Choi?
Thank you, President Ryan. We'll pause for 1 minute to take requests to speak on action items. If you'd like to speak, please press the raise hand icon or dial *9. President Ryan, we have no requests.
Thank you so much, Dr. Choi. So in 14A, we have our own Dr. Linda Delatorre presenting to us 2021 to 22 District Sunshine Proposal for Contract Negotiations. This is between the San Marino Unified School District and the California School Employees Association, CSEA, Local Chapter 120. This is an action item.
Yes. Thank you, President Ryan, members of the board, school board member Vahini, Dr. Wilson, and executive team. As President Ryan mentioned earlier, the district made public its initial proposal on its website on March 9th. And so the community has had an opportunity to view and comment on the district's initial proposal and CSEA's initial proposal for the upcoming school year. This initial proposal is a requirement under the Educational Employment Relations Act, and it is intended to give the community an opportunity to understand and identify the topics that are going to be discussed at the bargaining table. And so we have met our obligation under EERA, but also so has CSEA. The board does not ever take action on the association's initial proposals, but they are required to sunshine them as well. So we do post them on behalf of the associations. So this is a successor agreement with CSEA, meaning that it is not just an additional 1 year that we are looking at, where the entire contract is open for negotiations. So on our initial proposal, we are looking to modify Article 4, which is the grievance procedures, modify Article 6, transfer procedures, modify Article 7, wages and salaries, modify Article 8, health and welfare, modify Article 9, hours and overtime, modify Article 10, leaves of absence, modify Article 11, vacations, modify Article 12, holidays, modify Article 15, employee evaluation procedures, and then Article 28, which is longevity. Without going into a lot of detail, essentially what the district is interested in doing in each one of these articles is to revise the language to ensure that it reflects current practices and current laws. In some cases, there may be language contained within our collective bargaining agreement that is no longer relevant. We've also been engaging a subcommittee of both of the teams to work on revamping all of our classified position descriptions. And so we're doing this over time because we're a small school district and we don't have layers of staff to perform these duties. It's getting done a lot slower than I would like, but it is getting done. And so titles may be changing to more accurately reflect our current structure. And we had a consultant come in probably 3 years ago now, who did a classification study. And essentially he looked at all of our classified positions compared to districts that are geographically close and similar to us in size. And we looked at benchmark studies to determine whether or not we are, paying salaries that are competitive, whether or not our titles are relevant. And so we are working to update some position descriptions, and in our contract there may be references to old positions. In addition to that, I just need to let the board know that we have not yet closed out negotiations for the current year. We have been so focused on COVID-19 compliance, the reopening of TK through second, and now we're talking about the reopening of grades 3 through 5, that we have not yet had sufficient time to sit down and talk about the current year in terms of salaries and benefits. And so we just got our renewal rates for health and welfare, and we're going to be presenting those to the association. to talk about, how we're going to fund those increases. So at some point, we're going to bring forward a proposed agreement to close out the current year. And then we're going to begin bargaining the upcoming year. Are there any questions on the district's initial proposal for CSEA for 21-22?
Hi, Dr. Territory. I have a question.
Yes, sir.
On the modified Article 8, Health and Welfare.
Mhm.
So what is the timetable? Is that we are going to renegotiate our health insurance again, or this is the second year, right?
Yes, every year we're looking at either a rate pass or rate increase or decrease depending on utilization. And so this year I just attended the Csba Executive Board of Directors meeting where we got our renewal rates. And it is so fascinating because our claims have actually gone down over this last year, which is counter to what we thought would happen due to COVID-19. We thought that our rates were going to go way up because of all the hospitalization, but because fewer people are going to the doctor and elective surgeries have been postponed, because when we shut down, doctors were no longer performing knee replacement, hip replacement surgeries, and those kinds of things that they would consider elective. And so we're only going to get like a 5.86% increase, where we were projecting it was going to be like 22%. Having said that, we're concerned about the upcoming year when the physicians start to perform those surgeries, people start flooding back to the doctors. And so we're concerned that, we might be looking at a really big rate increase for 22-23, or, 22-23 now. So we're just gonna try to keep the board informed. We'll try to keep our bargaining units informed, but it's less than what we thought it would be, quite frankly, in this year. But we still need to figure out how to pay for that increase. So we will be bargaining that. And the current structure is that the district pays a percentage and the employees pay a percentage toward the premium.
By the way, since COVID-19 will not disappear sooner, so is that we can, for a health benefit, on the insurance, is that we can exclude the COVID-19 coverage benefit for the teacher and the staff? Is that they have this kind of discussion?
No, because we've talked about that for workers' compensation, Mr. Chang. So I know what you're talking about in that regard, but because teachers and classified employees and administrators are considered essential employees, the insurance companies have to continue to pay for things like testing, wherein they will not necessarily do that for non-essential employees that are asymptomatic, but they will continue to pay the claims, at least for now. They're saying, yeah, that's something we have to do, but it costs $50 to $75 per test to pay those claims. And so that is going to add up over time. And so we anticipate that will be coming back to us in the form of a rate increase next year. But we can exempt our employees from COVID-19 related services because they're essential employees.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? All right, Dr. Delatorre, now I'm moving to action item.
Yes, I need the board. I need the board to take a vote on this. Yeah.
Thank you. It is recommended that the board approve the 2021-22 District Sunshine Proposal for contract negotiations between the San Marino Unified School District and the California School Employees Association, CSEA Local Chapter 120. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Chang.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Barbary. And I would like to take a vote. Mrs. Chong,
Aye.
Mr. Barbary,
Aye.
Mrs. Chan Lin,
Aye.
Mr. Chang,
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan, aye. And then student board member Bahini.
Aye.
Thank you. So the motion passes. And next up, Dr. Delatorre on 14B 2021 District Sunshine Proposal for contract negotiations between San Marino Unified School District and the San Marino Teachers Association, SMTA. This is also an action item.
Thank you, President Ryan, members of the board, Student Board Member Vahini, Dr. Wilson, and executive team. We have before you this evening a similar document to that of CSCA's initial proposal. This is for the 2021-22 school year. And again, just as a reminder, we have not closed out negotiations for the current year that we are in. So we'll be working on that, even potentially retroactively, I'm not sure. So under this initial proposal, we would like to modify Article 15, which is salary rules and regulations. And this is not a completely open contract. So the way that it works when we're just going to renew negotiations is that you have salary and benefits, which are automatic reopeners every year. And then you have, each party has 2 reopeners at their choice. And so I just wanted to make that clear for those of you who are new to this process, that with SMTA, we have our 2 reopeners and the automatic reopener salaries and benefits, which we'll be negotiating. So we're looking at modifying, and by the way, extra duty assignments falls under the salary umbrella, so that doesn't really count as a separate reopener. So we're looking at the regular salary schedule, we're looking at the additional assignment schedule, which we refer to as Schedule B. And then we're looking at fringe benefits, automatic reopener, and that's Article 16. And then our reopener article is Article 6 and Article 7. And we've discussed, I think we've discussed both of these articles with the board previously. There's lots of language that we need to look at in the professional workday section of Article 6. We're looking at potentially different schedules for next year. We're also looking at reviewing the current evaluation instrument, which is standards-based, but we want to make sure that we have the best instrument to be able to evaluate all of our teachers. So we're going to be working really hard on those 2 articles in the contract in addition to salaries and benefits. Are there any questions? Jane.
Go ahead, Mrs. Chong.
I was just wondering, I recognize that you guys are working on all of this. I just wanted to say one thing, that I know parents are always wanting to know start dates.
Yes.
Dates. I think everyone's like itching to travel right now too.
Yes. Yes.
And not only just for this upcoming year, which may not be possible because everything is still up in the air,
Right.
but I think if at all possible to be able to map out multi-year dates, if at all possible. That's a big ask.
Yeah.
I'm just putting it out there because I know that that's always what parents are wondering and kind of hoping for, but
Absolutely. And I really appreciate that because that's at the very top of our list. And so we've already made known to the association that we have to find some time to bargain calendar. We do have a proposal, but we're trying to figure out how to incorporate professional development because we have some really important professional development that we'd like to get to our teachers. And so we're just trying to figure out where that would fit in the calendar? Is it going to go before school, during school? Are we going to look at, incorporating professional development based on late start, early release, and what some other districts are doing in that regard? So we're going to have a few proposals that we're going to bring back to the board for your consideration, but we are trying to pin down at least a start date so that we can give that to our parents and of course the board, our teachers, and so many people are interested in that. And we have done multi-year calendar agreements in the past. And so we are going to work toward getting back to that because it is really helpful for the teachers too, for planning purposes. And I know it's so important to our parents, and there's just a lot of information that is very helpful for people if we do that. So we're going to work on it. It's at the top of our list as soon as we get, the kids back in their seats and everything settled. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else for discussion or comments? All right. So this is also an action item. So may I have a motion?
I move to approve the Sunshine proposal for contract negotiations.
Thank you, Mrs. Chong.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Barbary. I'd like to take roll call. Mrs. Chong,
Aye.
Mr. Chang,
Aye.
Mrs. Chanlin,
Aye.
Mr. Barbary,
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan, aye, and our school board member, Ms. Bahini.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. And next up at 14C, we have CSBA Delegate Assembly Election. This is an action item. Did anyone not receive the information on this item? Okay. So you've had an opportunity to look at our the packet, and the Board of Education will now vote for CSBA. Thank you, Dr. Choi, for putting it on the screen. The Board of Education will now vote for CSBA Delegate Assembly representatives. The board is going to vote for up to the number of vacancies in the region or sub-region as indicated on the ballot. There are 2 vacancies. The board may vote for up to 2 candidates. And so I believe both of these candidates are incumbents. And so do I have a motion to select these 2 candidates, or we're doing one by one?
I would be fine with moving to vote for 2 candidates.
Okay, so thank you, Mrs. Chong, for making the motion to approve both candidates. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Chen Lin. I think. And let's do a roll call. Mr. Barbary,
Aye.
Mr. Chang,
Aye.
Mrs. Chen Lin,
Aye.
Mrs. Chong,
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan, that's an aye, and our student board member.
Aye.
Thank you, Bahini. All right. So next up, comprehensive safe school plans. Dr. Richter, you are up. This is an action item. I am so excited to hear all about the plans.
Thank you, President Ryan, members of the board, student board member Mahini, Superintendent Dr. Wilson, and Executive Cabinet. It's my pleasure tonight to present an overview of the SMUSD Comprehensive School Safety Plan. If you had the opportunity to review these plans, you will indeed find that they are very comprehensive and full of very, very valuable information for our school sites. So tonight I will briefly review the plan, the requirements, and the components and the development of each of the plans for all 4 schools. Before I begin though, I want to make sure that I give a special thanks to our school principals, Dr. Lin, Ms. Foray, Mr. Topalian, Mr. Kurtenbach, excuse me, and our athletic director, Mr. David Irier, as well as our police chief in Contra and fire chief Rueda for their facilitation and input on these school plans. But I also would like to give a very special thank you to Miss Elizabeth Hollingsworth, who really put in a lot of time and effort and worked very closely with the school sites to develop a very comprehensive plan. And speaking of school site, I would be remiss if I did not thank our school site council at each of these schools who were highly instrumental in collaboratively developing these plans, reviewing them, and approving them. Next slide, please. Thank you, Dr. Choi. The development of the Comprehensive Schools Safety Plan is mandated by the California Education Code 32281. It's a mandate that was established by Senate Bill 187. This mandate states that all public schools in kindergarten through grades 12, in cooperation with specified entities, must develop a comprehensive school safety plan. And these plans must be reviewed and updated annually by their school site council and approved by their governing board no later than March 1st of each year. Also, in accordance with this mandate and Ed Code, the approved comprehensive school safety plans must be kept on file at both the school site and the district office and be readily available for inspection by the public. Thank you, Dr. Choi. All the comprehensive school safety plans include an action plan that clearly identifies policies and procedures that will improve both the safety and climate on campus, as well as an evaluation component. So in essence, each of these plans really have two parts. The first part would be the comprehensive school safety plan itself, which includes all the components required by Ed Code 32281 through 32282. And these are with respect to policies and procedures. The second part of the plan is what we would call the emergency preparedness plan. And this includes disaster protocols and procedures for routines in case of an emergency, such as an earthquake or other man-made or natural disasters. For part one, each school's plan outlines reporting procedures and policies as required by Ed Code, such as child abuse reporting procedures, disaster procedures, school suspension, expulsion, and mandatory expulsion guidelines, procedures to notify teachers of dangerous pupils, sexual harassment policies, school-wide dress codes relating to gang-related apparel. And we'll move on to the next slide, please. As well as rules, procedures for discipline, requirements for schools to develop disciplinary rules in accordance with laws to meet student needs, safe and orderly school environments that are conducive to learning, such as CPR, first training, physical safety, fire emergency drills, disaster drills, school discipline rules and consequences. This includes student conduct, zero tolerance, and suspension and expulsion. Hate crime reporting, procedures and policies, very clearly outlined as well. Procedures for preventing acts of bullying and cyberbullying. And these include expectations and consequences. And then moving on to part two, which is our emergency response procedures. These really include our incident command team responsibilities. SMUSD currently utilizes Catapult, which is our essential communication and informational tool. We use this as our district's emergency management system. Within Catapult, we find schools' chain of commands, as well as different training, different drills, communications, scripts, reunion procedures, protocols, and procedures for various emergencies and disasters, such as the ones that were highlighted in previous slides. And you can see them all here listed on the right side: bomb threats, reunification and release procedures, chemical or hazardous materials, all the way down to procedures for search and rescue, should one need to be taken on a school campus. Next slide, please. So California Assembly Bill AB 1747 was signed by the governor in the year 2019, which seems so long ago right now. And this really incorporated a few more mandates requiring that plans include procedures for tactical responses, really allowing response personnel to prepare for and safely respond to incidences to allow for effective and efficient responses in case of emergencies or disasters, excuse me. Also encourages school districts to consult with law enforcement and fire department. And lastly, encourages policies aimed at preventing bullying and cyberbullying. And that little link down right at the bottom is a link directly to the California Assembly Bill AB 1747. And the next slide, compliance review process. All of our safety plans were developed in accordance with California Ed Code. The mandate, as we said earlier, that was established by AB 187. Each school plan was reviewed by its school site council and the San Marino Police Department and the San Marino Fire Department as required. In addition, all PTSAs, PTA, SMTA, and CSEA representatives reviewed and approved the plan. Existing law requires school site council of a school, except as provided for small school districts, to write and develop these comprehensive school safety plans. So as they have been developed, written, and approved, we have completely adhered to the mandate that has been set forth by Ed Code and AB 187. Chief Encontra and Chief Rueda were also consulted and were highly valuable and instrumental in providing feedback and recommendations on the safety plans. I personally had the pleasure of meeting with both Chief Encontro and Chief Rueda throughout this process, and I'm very grateful for their partnership and support of San Marino Unified School District. And the last page is thank you, and I'll take any questions, but that does complete my overview of the development of the comprehensive safety plan, its required components. And at this point, I would like to recommend that the board approve the 2020-2021 comprehensive safe school plans as presented.
Thank you for that wonderful presentation, Dr. Richter. At this time, I'm going to just ask my fellow board members if they have any comments or questions for you.
Mr. Chang?
Okay, you can refer to any for school site, page 9. Okay, for example, cover the paragraph, third paragraph, suspension rate. So what is the definition for the socio-economically disadvantages suspended?
For Carver on page 9.
Yeah.
And under suspension.
Yeah,
rate,
any school, page 9, yeah. Okay, yeah, this one, third paragraph, yeah. Suspension rate. Yes.
So Mr. Chang, are you asking what defines socioeconomically disadvantaged?
Yes.
Those would be students who are eligible for free and reduced lunch based on socioeconomic disadvantage. So they're part of, we have an unduplicated count of students. So when you talk about funding, our supplemental grant from the state of California is based on three different classifications of students. One is socioeconomically disadvantaged, one is foster youth, and one is second language or ELD learners. So that first group, socioeconomically disadvantaged, would be those who qualify for free and reduced lunch.
Thank you.
Yeah. In the LCAP, they're also, yes, they're also referred to as part of the unduplicated count.
Anyone else with any other questions?
This is Jane. I just had a few. For some of the reporting requirements, what kind of mechanisms are in place for people to be able to make reports without fear of retaliation?
For the reporting mechanisms?
Mm-hmm.
Could you be a little bit more specific?
I guess I'm just, because this is a safety document, and so we rely, I know we have a few things like WeTip and things like that, and I'm just wondering if you can give me an idea of if people want to be able to report any incidents or anything without any retaliation coming back to them, what are some of those mechanisms that we have available for people?
Yes, and I do know that we have some anonymous methods for reporting incidences and reporting such things that are included in this plan. I don't have the list with me. I can get that information
Well,
and definitely
I
bring
can
it
give you
back to
one
the
right
board.
off the bat. If you go to our website and
Okay.
go to the students tab, okay, the first pop-up under the students tab. Oh, thank you, Stephen. Go ahead and pop it up there. So actually under that's the high school, but it's on, if you go to the main website,
Oh, it's right
there's
there.
incident reporting for the high school right there. There you
Mhm.
go. That's the same report, but if you were good to go to the district website and under students, yeah, go ahead and pop up the San Marino Unified. Okay, students, and right there, first one, first top, right there. That's your one. And then also on that same tab, you saw at the bottom, there is suicide prevention as well for students down at the bottom. There you go.
Great.
Thank you, Dr.
And
Wilson.
there's a
for
lot
pointing those
of
out.
resources
Awesome.
right there.
Perfect. Okay. And then I was wondering, when I was looking at one of the, I recall that in the past we had done like lockdown drills and shelter in place drills and things like that. So I had two questions related to that. I was just wondering if I didn't see them listed on some of them. So I'm not sure if we just didn't schedule it this year or, and then I'm also, the second part of that question is, as we're in COVID, are we going to be doing any of that this year?
Absolutely. Yes, they are listed in the second part of the plan, which if we can go back, Mr. Choi, to one of the slides. They are incorporated into that second part of the plan. And as we bring back our TK through second graders on campus now, we have been communicating with the principals to ensure that they organize and facilitate emergency evacuation drills, whether it be a fire drill or an earthquake drill, because we do have students back on campus right now. We will do the same thing as we bring back our 3rd through 5th grade students and, on grades up as we bring them back to campus.
Okay, so there's room for flexibility around like the dates that are in these reports to make sure
Yes,
that.
absolutely.
And then,
Absolutely.
great. And then my last thing was more a general thing. I know in the past when we have incidents that take place, sometimes the rumors go faster than the reality and the communication. So I would just encourage that when there is an incident, even if there isn't anything to report, kind of we know this is happening and please stand by parents and please don't spread rumors. And please don't call the police department because they really don't like it when you call them and they're in the middle of dealing with the emergency. So if we can just make sure that that's one of our communication protocols to our family.
Absolutely.
And,
Yes,
and Mrs.
absolutely.
John, that was actually something that, pre-COVID, that coming out of, previous drills and incidents that we were working really closely with chiefs in Contra and right on. One of those mechanisms was to identify a singular person in the district who would act as the point person in those incidents. So, when we had the lockdown that was over between Carver and the high school in that neighborhood there, that was an incident we learned a lot from, and we debriefed at City Hall with the chiefs, and we came up with some really excellent plans out of that, of how to centralize that communication and make sure that that was happening. So that was a good test for everybody.
Awesome, thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Richter. If there are no other questions, I'd like to ask the board to make a motion to approve the comprehensive safe school plans for San Marino High School, Huntington Middle School, Valentine, and Carver.
I'll make that motion, Jane.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Chong.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Chang. Mrs. Chen Lin,
Aye.
Mr. Barbary,
Aye.
Mrs. Chong,
Aye.
Mr. Chang,
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan, aye, and Ms. Vahini Garamella.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion has passed. Item 15 is board superintendent discussion items. Are there any? I could make a time record. here.
Well, you know, I have a bet that we weren't going to be out before 9:30, so I've got 22 minutes of information.
No.
No, what I do want to say is just pause for a moment and thank the Board of Education. You know, one thing that's really neat about this board is each of you brings your own talents and perspectives and skills to the table. And, you know, my frequent communication with you has really helped me understand each of you. And that's great. It really adds so much value to the district. And I want people who are listening out there to know just how involved and how much each of our board members care so much about every one of our students. And that's fantastic, right? I mean, I think we can all agree that we're all vested in the same direction, which is providing the best possible education for every single one of our students here in this school district. And so thank you for all your guidance, and thank you to staff, my team, my executive team, for their tireless work in getting us to this point. And so let's get out a little early tonight, right?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Wilson, for your leadership. And if there's nothing in closed session, so I would like to adjourn the meeting.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you,
Bye.
President
night.
Ryan.
Thank
Bye.
you, President Ryan.
Bye, thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.